Imagine, if you will, a thread of gold, luminous and untarnished, woven through the tapestry of time, connecting the mist-shrouded peaks of Mount Parnassus to the dusty roads of ancient Judea. This is not a thread of historical fact as we commonly understand it, but rather one of spiritual resonance, a hidden lineage of divine wisdom whispered from one vessel to another across centuries and civilizations. We speak of the forbidden oracle of Delphi, Mary Magdalene's hidden Greek prophecy, a concept that exists not in the brittle parchments of Orthodox history, but in the liminal space where myth becomes meaning and intuition challenges the institutional record. It is an invitation to perceive history not as a linear chronology, but as a sacred geometry, where figures and energies converge in patterns that reveal a deeper architecture of human awakening. This exploration begins at the crossroads of two seemingly disparate worlds, the Apollonian clarity of Greece and the nascent, revolutionary fervor of early Christianity. At its heart is the figure of Mary Magdalene, so often confined to the margins of Scripture, reimagined not merely as a follower, but as an initiated priestess in her own right, a bearer of a Gnostic truth too potent for the emerging orthodoxy. The prophecy she is said to carry did not originate in the Holy Land, but was instead a wisdom inherited, or perhaps downloaded, from the final Pythia of Delphi, the last voice of a dying oracle whose message was destined to go underground. This is the forbidden knowledge, a synthesis of the Greek know thyself with the mystical heart of Christ's teachings, creating a unified field of understanding about the soul's journey. To engage with this idea is to step through a veil, to look upon our spiritual heritage with new eyes. It asks us to consider that the most profound truths are often preserved not in the grand cathedrals and official decrees, but in the hidden streams, the suppressed gospels, and the silent knowing of the heart. The oracle's decline and Mary's subsequent role represent a critical transfer of custodianship, a passing of the torch from the public, state-sanctioned divine to the private, internalized revelation. This is the grand, cosmic dimension of the story, the eternal truth adapting its form, moving from the stone temple to the temple of the human body and spirit, awaiting a time when consciousness would be ready to receive it once more. We are not merely uncovering a fictional historical conspiracy, but rather we are remembering a fragmented part of our own spiritual consciousness. The prophecy itself is less a prediction of specific events and more a map of inner transformation, a guide for navigating the ascent from the illusion of separation into the luminous reality of unified being. As we begin this journey together, we are not merely learning about the past, we are activating a latent code within ourselves, stirring a memory of a wisdom that was always meant to be reclaimed, a song that was silenced but never forgotten, now rising again to meet the yearning of the modern soul. This hidden prophecy, this whispered transmission between the Pythia and the Magdalene, rests upon several profound pillars that form its conceptual bedrock, each one a keystone in the archway leading to a more enlightened understanding of self and cosmos. The first and most fundamental is the principle of sacred union, the reconciliation of opposites that the ancient Greeks called hierogamos. At Delphi, this was embodied in the balance between the celestial, rational light of Apollo and the chthonic, intuitive wisdom of Dionysus, whose presence also inhabited the sacred precept. This is not a mere mythological detail, but a cosmic blueprint, reflecting the essential dance between the masculine and the feminine, the light and the shadow, the known and the unknown within the totality of existence, and more critically, within the human soul. Mary Magdalene emerges within this framework not as a repentant sinner, but as the living embodiment of this reconciled duality, the acknowledged and equal counterpart to the Christ consciousness. She represents the Sophia, the divine wisdom that completes the Logos, the active word. The prophecy she carries forward is the revelation that enlightenment is not an escape from the world or the body, but a full, sacred integration of spirit and matter. This challenges the foundations of the dualistic thinking that would later come to dominate Western thought, proposing instead that our humanity, with all its passions and vulnerabilities, is not a flaw to be transcended, but the very ground upon which divinity is realized and made whole. A second core theme is that of the internalized oracle, the seismic shift from seeking truth from an external institutional authority to awakening the prophetic voice within. The silencing of the Delphic temple can be seen not as an end, but as a necessary dispersal of that oracular power into the heart of every individual who dares to listen. The famous maxims carved at Delphi, "Know thyself" and "Nothing in excess," were never merely philosophical suggestions. They were the encoded instructions for this very transition. The prophecy, therefore, is the map that guides us to find our own omphalos, our own navel of the world, in the center of our being, where our own inner Pythia speaks in the language of intuition, dreams, and silent knowing. This leads us to the third pillar, the concept of gnosis as direct revelation. The forbidden knowledge is not a set of dogmas to be believed, but a living, experiential truth to be encountered. It is the flame passed from one torch to another, a lineage of awakening that operates outside sanctioned channels. This gnosis is the direct apprehension of the divine matrix that connects all life, the understanding that the kingdom of heaven is not a distant destination, but a latent dimension of perception available here and now. The union of the Delphi and Magdalene streams signifies the fusion of Hellenic self-inquiry with mystical Christ consciousness, creating a potent alchemy for personal and planetary transformation, a path not of blind faith, but of sovereign, self-realized truth. Let us then descend into the mythic heart of this confluence, where history and symbol merge to form a more profound language of the soul. Consider the allegory of the final Pythia, seated over the fissure in the earth from which intoxicating vapors once rose, now finding the wellspring of prophecy running dry, not from a withdrawal of the gods, but from a collective turning away. In her final vision, she does not see the end of wisdom, but its great migration. She perceives a vessel, a woman of the East, who would carry the essence of the oracle within her, not as a priestess of a single temple, but as a living, breathing sanctuary of the divine feminine, walking the earth to seed a new understanding. This vessel is Mary, the Magdalene, the one who would comprehend the mystery of the dying and rising God, not as a theological event, but as the very rhythm of the cosmos and the psyche. This symbolic narrative deepens with the image of the journey itself, a perilous voyage across the Mediterranean Sea, that great subconscious of the ancient world. The scrolls, or the oral tradition she carries, are not merely texts, but a living water, a spiritual hydrancy, blending the waters of the Castalian spring with the living water offered by the Christ. It is the alchemical marriage of the Greek pursuit of form, beauty, and reason with the raw, unbounded love and grace of the gospel. Her arrival in the south of France, a land steeped in its own earth-based mysteries, represents the planting of this hybrid seed in fertile, receptive ground, a secret garden where this unified wisdom could be protected and cultivated outside the reach of imperial orthodoxy. Another powerful symbolic layer is found in the meeting of the serpent and the dove. At Delphi, the python, a great serpent, was the original guardian of the oracle, representing the primal earthly wisdom of Gaia, which Apollo was said to have conquered. In the Christian tradition, the serpent is often cast as the deceiver. Yet in this hidden narrative, the prophecy reveals a reconciliation. Mary Magdalene, often depicted with an alabaster jar, becomes the point of integration. The jar itself is a vessel of the soul, and the ointment within, the spikenard, is the concentrated essence of this reconciled wisdom, the healing of the split between the earthly, the serpent, and the heavenly, the dove, affirming that the path to the divine winds directly through the heart of our embodied, earthly experience. This is not a story of replacement, but of remembrance and return. The hidden prophecy narrates the soul's own odyssey back to its source, a journey that requires navigating both the Scylla of rigid dogma and the Charybdis of formless mysticism. It tells us that the answers we seek at the world's navels, at its sacred sites and ancient ruins, are ultimately reflections of a truth buried deep within our own psychic structure, waiting to be excavated and brought into the light of our own conscious awareness, completing a circle that was fractured millennia ago. Of course, let us now bridge the celestial with the terrestrial, translating these grand symbolic narratives into the tangible substance of our daily lives. The first and most immediate implication of this hidden prophecy is the profound democratization of divine authority. You are invited to become the new temple, the new oracle. The practice begins with a radical and sincere commitment to the ancient dictum, "Know thyself." This is not a passive intellectual exercise, but an active daily archaeology of the soul, where we excavate our motivations, our shadows, our deeply ingrained patterns, and our most authentic desires, learning to distinguish the voice of conditioned fear from the quiet, persistent whisper of intuitive truth. This internal work naturally cultivates what we might call oracular perception, a way of seeing the world not as a series of random events, but as a symbolic text rich with personal meaning and guidance. The flight of a bird, a chance encounter, a recurring dream, or a sudden obstacle ceases to be mere coincidence and becomes a potential communique from the deeper self, your inner Pythia. This shifts your relationship with reality from one of passive endurance to active dialogue, where every moment is imbued with the potential for revelation, and your life becomes the scroll upon which a personal prophecy is continually being written, a living gospel of your own journey toward wholeness. In our relationships and communities, the principle of sacred union offers a transformative framework for interaction. It moves us beyond the paradigm of domination and submission, of us versus them, and toward a model of sacred partnership and co-creation. This means honoring both the assertive and the receptive, the logical and the intuitive, within ourselves and in our dealings with others. Practically, this could manifest as consciously creating spaces where all voices are heard, where collaboration is valued over competition, and where we seek to understand the other not as an adversary, but as the necessary counterpart that makes our own growth and the evolution of collective consciousness possible. Finally, the legacy of the hidden prophecy calls for a re-enchantment of our very existence, a recognition of the sacredness inherent in the mundane. The divine is not sequestered in a far-off heaven or a distant past. It pulses in the soil of your garden, speaks through the eyes of your beloved, and breathes in the challenges of your career. To integrate this wisdom is to approach every action, no matter how small, as a ritual. It is to infuse your work, your creativity, and your care for others with the conscious intention of being a living vessel for that same unified spirit, thereby healing the perceived schism between the spiritual and the material, and embodying the prophecy in the most practical and revolutionary way imaginable. And so we arrive at the culmination of this journey, not at an end, but at a new beginning, a point of ignition. The tapestry of the Forbidden Oracle is now fully unfurled before us, revealing that its threads were never confined to the distant past, but were always woven into the very fabric of our present longing. This is the transformational call inherent in the meeting of Delphi and Magdalene. The era of seeking external saviors and far-off oracles is over. The prophecy was never about foretelling a predetermined future. It was about awakening us to our own power and responsibility to shape it from the inside out. The mantle has been passed, not to a chosen few, but to every soul who feels the stirring of that ancient, integrated wisdom within. This is a call to cease the outward pilgrimage and to turn, with fierce and loving attention, inward. Your heart is the new sacred precinct, your breath the intoxicating vapor that opens the gates of perception, and your conscious life the final, most important prophecy you will ever utter. The hidden message was always one of radical self-responsibility and profound self-love, a directive to reconcile the warring factions within your own being, the light and the shadow, the human and the divine, and in doing so to become a living sanctuary of peace and power in a fractured world. You are the inheritors of this lineage. Therefore, let this understanding be a catalyst, not merely for contemplation, but for a fundamental reorientation of your life. The world does not need more dogma. It needs embodied wisdom. It does not need more followers. It needs sovereign beings grounded in their own inner truth and capable of acting from a place of unified love. Carry this synthesis forward as your quiet revolution. Be the oracle that speaks with compassion, the temple that offers sanctuary through presence, and the living proof that the deepest mysteries are not meant to be guarded in secret, but to be lived, breathed, and made manifest in every choice, every relationship, and every moment of your beautifully human existence. The prophecy is now yours to fulfill. And so the sacred thread has been passed from our hands to yours, not to be stored away, but to be woven into the very fabric of your daily life. If this resonance of forgotten truths has stirred something within you, a memory of a deeper knowing, then we invite you to become a guardian of this flame. Please help our channel grow and spread the message by liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications, ensuring the stream of wisdom continues to flow into a world in need of remembering. We journey together, so make your voice part of our shared quest. Drop a comment below and share what part of this hidden prophecy echoed most deeply within your soul. For it is from your insights that our next exploration will be born. The greatest oracle is a community of awakened hearts seeking as one.